Aloha, everyone. Welcome to Java. Thank you for joining me. This is Sunday, and it's November 12th, 2023. We're going for this week ahead. And there's quite a few things that happened Friday that I think was done intentionally so that the market could digest this over the weekend and not have severe effects from it. So this is the week forward. And what we're expecting Tuesday is the CPI report on the 14th. So this is the core inflation that the Fed uses for the outlook on their monetary policy decisions. So they've been talking about possibly one more rate hike prior to the end of this year. That could make the difference. So I've got a few things that we'd like to, of course, go through here. Always watching shipping because that to me is an indicator of the real economy, watching how goods are going around, whether they're being manufactured or on the trade. So it's gone from a $364 billion boom to now they're cutting jobs because they've got to watch their costs because it's come down quite a bit. And oil prices still high. So they're blaming stubborn core inflation and talking about the differences with the Fed, as well as the US credit rating outlook change. And they've also got the shutdown risk for the United States government. So we'll go over that for now. House Republicans looking to pass a two-step package. So they're talking about temporary spending until they can make the full agreement, basically. And one thing that has been cut from this spending package is money for the war for Ukraine. So we'll see how this does. It's just kind of a band-aid that'll pull it through to the next time. We just went through this. So because all of this instability as well as the debt and everything else going on, Moody's decided to slash the US credit rating outlook to negative. So this is not cutting the rating itself, but cutting the outlook. So it's basically a shot across the bow to kind of warn them to get their stuff in order. So the external view of this, and this is from Russia today, but basically I'm sure this opinion is also shared by other countries that are suffering from the policy, is that they're calling it a terrorist economy. Washington is prepared to create a new financial disaster for the whole world. And this is true because this is possible because it is still, the US dollar is still the reserve currency of the world. So at this moment, while they've all been diminishing their holdings, it's still required to trade in US dollars, even though they're kind of skirting this on massive amounts of trade between the oil and the dark market. It is still a lot of holdings on their balance sheets between the central banks as well as treasuries that they hold, which is key to the next point that I'd like to make. Had a Treasury auction and it did terribly. So, all of this debt that we're borrowing against, the Treasury is borrowing to fund these wars that Janet Yellen says that we can afford two wars, no one is buying the debt. And that is causing a lot of issues, caused yields to spike, which is what we watch every morning as far as traders. It is the benchmark for how the markets are doing. So the 10-year yield had to increase in order to get people to buy this debt, to get a return on it. So as we watch those yields spike, that tends to crush the markets. So even though they did this on Friday, basically let all this information out so that the markets would digest this over Saturday, Sunday, I do expect it still to hit on Monday. And we'll talk about this in the morning prior to market open. So with this, we've got Janet Yellen saying that the United States and China need, quote unquote, healthy economic relations. So, two reasons. One, we can't exist without their trade or goods. We also need rare earth minerals, and they are one of the few sources that we have. And number two, they hold still a large number of treasuries as well as US dollars. So, if they decide to dump these treasuries all at once, it would be terrible for their economy, but it is a possibility they would sink the market. So, along with this, we've got the IMF upgrading China's growth outlook. So, they've been doing really well because they have been producing. They're putting out goods and they have resources to sell, as I said, rare earth minerals, which are necessary to create like all of these electric vehicle batteries and multiple other things that are just critical. So they've kind of got the upper hand there. As far as Europe, they're still having basically an energy crisis. So this came out about Switzerland, and this story really shows how precarious they are, because there's two things in here that kind of scare me a bit. First, basically, it's their nuclear power. The first part that concerns me is that they plan to keep their nuclear power plants operational longer than previously planned among fears of electricity shortages. And the second part is that they will do this as long as they are deemed safe. So, number one, they're pushing the limits. And number two, who deems that these are safe? Because once they go terribly, as far as my understanding. So if I'm missing something here, feel free to comment on this. I am a proponent of nuclear energy to a point. I don't think it should be pushed to where it's unsafe. So I've got a couple of other things I would like to bring up before I let you go. So while this is not directly related to the markets, there were protests and marches. And this particular story is 300,000 in London for Palestine, but these are happening all over the world for both sides. And regardless of the side that you are on, people are marching for these, and they're not even sure of what's going on there. Why won't they march for their financial freedom? Why aren't they pushing back on the governments for these policies that are indeed creating the tensions that cause these wars in the first place? Because all wars are bankers' wars. And really, the true war that is going on right now that I would like to bring out is artificial intelligence, the propaganda. So they've stepped this up. And this is basically a war for people's minds. And everybody that's here pretty much has a clue. But for the most part, people have no idea really what's going on or understand that there is so much manipulation going on. And they have poured, governments and larger corporations have poured billions into artificial intelligence propaganda. And one thing I'd like to bring up is that there are people now that are looking for these. We showed that burning vehicle that was completely fake. It was completely created. There were a couple of photographs that were circulating about children, like terrible, bloody children. They're made to emotionally instill emotions in people so that they will do things like this. And the child had 6 fingers. So there's something about AI is when they try to generate humans, something to look for is their largest failures tend to be in the hands or the ears or noses. So look at those on humans. For some reason, it's difficult for them to render. So just a little key cue. We'll keep you up to date on as much as we possibly can, and I'll see you in the morning. So until then, my friends, have a wonderful day. Stay ready, and until I see you again, stay free.